Hello, everyone. Welcome to FireDEV, a fireside chat with people in the industry. Today, my guest is Anul Agarwal. Anul, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Frahan? Thank you for inviting me to the podcast. I'm really excited
I
to.
mean, it's a pleasure to have you here. And honestly, I'm doing well. It's a Friday here. The weather in the UK never the best, but it's not raining right now. Just a bit cloudy. It's a Friday. Looking forward to the weekend. It's been a long week, and this is just a great way to top off the podcast. For myself on my end. So yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you because I came across you on LinkedIn. You was doing a bunch of posts about generating artwork, generating like making games using AI tools like ChatGPT. So I want to dive into that first. Do you want to tell the audience a little bit about what you're doing there and like some of those videos that you made online?
Sure. I'll start off by introducing myself. So I have been working in the games industry for the past 4 years now. 4 years ago, I graduated doing my master's course, and ever since then, I've been making games. Uh, Making games as a part of my own studio and even working under other studios as a job as an employee. So I have worn many different hats like a game designer, game developer, publishing executive, and a game producer as well. But what I really like to do in the games industry is just develop prototypes, develop ideas, develop games, concepts, mechanics into Unity, program them, and see it come alive. So for the past few months, that is what I have been doing. Trying to work on some fun ideas. Share it with people on LinkedIn, YouTube. Try out some experiments using AI like ChatGPT, as you mentioned, and so far it has been going great. I really like these AI tools like ChatGPT and DAL-E. They can really help. Developers like myself, like who are solo developers, who prefer to be solo developers and still want to create games.
Okay, so these tools, how did most people have come across these tools, especially ChatGPT, specifically, but how did you come across it, and what drew your attention to it, and like how long ago was that? Because the tools have been around for about a year publicly, and then the API stuff a little bit before that. So at what stage was you going headfirst into it?
So it was, I think, October of 2022 when all these tools started popping up. ChatGPT with their first version, the 3.5 version. I was just experimenting around, seeing what it could do, and I had been following the news. I was checking out people were able to write some code out of it. They were able to ask it to generate some scripts, not for games but for web applications, PHP, HTML, CSS. I thought, why not give it a try for some Unity applications, some Unity scripting, and it could do that. It was doing a pretty good job at it. So from then on, I just started experimenting around it, and it is good to delegate tasks that are not super complicated, but it would take you as a developer some time to implement it in Unity, to write the script, to write the code. And if you just explain it to ChatGPT in simple text what needs to be done, it could do a very good job at it.
Oh yeah, for sure. 100%. There's so many, tasks as a everyday programmer, like documenting code, writing, comments, or writing some basic, function or screen that's generic. And in an ideal world, you would know how to do. It just makes it easier. Like, I think examples like those are just an extension to what IDEs already provide. Like Visual Studio Code, you can get plugins for it and some built-in features where if you're in a specific language or framework, you type in a certain command and it'll generate like a template file. So you're not doing, the header, which is going to be the same in every single one, the includes, and all that, and a few basic functions as well. So it basically gives you a template, and I think this is just like the next step to that. Obviously, you're taking it further where you're generating artwork in ChatGPT or in Dolly, and you're using it to generate code as well. Because some of the stuff that you posted online was like the watermelon game and something like Fox and Farm as well, a game that you created. How much of the code itself and the artwork as well was created by ChatGPT and Dolly, and how much did you have to either write fully yourself or modify?
hmm So let's talk about the watermelon game. It is actually one of my better games this year, and it is also performing really well on the web portals. And if you talk about the development, so uh, what I prefer to do is I prefer to create my own templates in Unity. These templates have many resource files like sounds, fonts, UI packs. It already has a lot of managers set up in the games, to control the game states, control the screen flow, control the sounds, the UI, and I keep reusing these templates over every project. So it helps me save a lot of time. I don't have to start from scratch. So that is one aspect of how I develop games. And for the watermelon game, uh, the, the the core concept is pretty simple. You have some fruits, you drop the fruits, and as they touch each other, they merge and they evolve. The merging code, the core gameplay was written by ChatGPT. I could have done it, but again, it would have taken me at least 3 to 4 hours to figure out everything, write the code, and test different cases around it. But ChatGPT could do it in 5 to 10 minutes. I had to guide it a little bit, but it got the job done pretty well. And if you talk about the artwork, it generated all of the fruits you could see in the game. All of the artwork that is there in the game was generated by ChatGPT. The UI, I designed it by myself. The buttons, the UI text holders, the boxes, and everything you see was designed by myself. And I used an additional UI pack. But there's also this thing: ChatGPT does not produce 100% exact results that you want. So what I did was I took the images it generated, I uploaded it in Photoshop, and I modified it a little bit. So removing the background, cleaning some of the elements that I did not like on the fruits. Like there were like too many sparkles on some of the fruits, so I toned it down a little bit. I made it a little bit more minimalistic, so it looks better and not very noisy or very crowded. So I would say around 70 to 80% of the development uh, was done by ChatGPT, mostly in terms of developing the resources. And then what I had to do was I had to connect different elements, different parts that was generated in Unity, set up the scenes, and make sure everything is running smoothly and craft everything together.
Yeah, so basically, what you're saying is you used it as a tool to assist in a lot of the, the legwork, the tedious grunt work, and then using your previous technical skills, you effectively stitched it together and, modified things, that needed to be done. And I think that's a key, lesson for anyone listening is uh, ChatGPT and these tools are getting better, so their capabilities is going to be what they can do in 6 months, 12 months, 24 months is going to be even more than what it can do now. But really, the people that are going to get the most out of it are going to be the people that have the technical skills. That could, like you said, technically do it yourself, but it take hours or maybe days, and then you're reducing it, and then you're using the technical skills to refine it. So, if you're creating like a website, for example, I could see you using ChatGPT to create the overall like layout, buttons, and link a few things. But then the styling aspect, the thing that makes it pop and go make people go wow, you'll probably do that yourself with some assistance with a tool like ChatGPT. but then overall you will be, styling it and getting it the exact way, you want it yourself. So like the artwork, I've seen some of the artwork that, you know, was generated via, your video than some of the stuff they generate when I've done it. That I'm guessing you did a bit of editing to the artwork, but like removing backgrounds. Did you do stuff like that and resizing?
Yeah, yeah, I did have to remove the backgrounds, modify the artwork a little bit in Photoshop, but that is fine. That consumes less time than creating everything from
Of
scratch. So
course.
yeah,
Oh yeah, and plus, I was, looking at the watermelon game, and the artwork for the fruit just looks fantastic. And like you said, it means that someone like yourself that's more technical than artistic, you can focus on the technical side and then still have a game that looks good. Because I've seen that several times before. A coder, and maybe there'll be like two coders, and they'll make a game. It feels pretty decent. It'll have a good concept to it, but then it just doesn't look good. It looks like a university project just simply because that they don't know how to create artwork, and frankly they're not putting enough effort into it because they don't enjoy that side of it. They're probably tired from just the coding aspect of it, whereas now they can generate this artwork really quickly. It's also good for of been hearing from concept artists, people that can do artwork. They love it because they can whip something up real quickly, get a feel for the theme that they want to go for, have some meetings around that, and then use a more human based approach for the overall direction. So they're saving time on the initial, I guess, experimentation stage. And you know you mentioned that towards the start of the podcast that that's what you love doing, experimenting, whipping up games, projects. And obviously this naturally just lends really well to it. But again, I want to ask about the artwork. Like, how do you get around the limitation of, because right now you can't specifically set the size of the artwork that's output, and parameters like that. I think it's usually what, like a square image, that it produces, and it's not the highest resolution. How do you get around those limitations?
so I think it generates landscape and square image, even portrait as well.
Oh, it
There
does
are
now. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But there are some limitations, as you mentioned. We can't have like specific canvas sizes to our requirements. It is not the highest resolution, but I think for mobile games it is fine. There are some other tools, that have been popping up that specifically generate artwork for games or for any other usage that you want. And you could imagine it as Photoshop, but AI. So you could upload some sample images, whatever artwork you have in mind, whatever you see online, you could upload it on that, and it would train on these styles. Let's say it's a 3D claymated cartoony style that you want. So you could share a couple of images on the portal of these AI tools, and what it would do is it would take some time to analyze these images, and then it could generate you whatever size, whatever resolution you want, images in those specifications and in those exact styles. So I think we are still early for this kind of specific image generation, but I think in the next 6 to 12 months we should be there. It is a limitation with ChatGPT for sure, but we have to work with what we have right now. So
Oh yeah,
yeah.
100%, and it's already amazing as it is. So, because you're using, read on your LinkedIn post that you're using ChatGPT 4, which is currently paid. Have you started using the new GPTs that were announced a few weeks ago? And how do you, find that? And where do you think that'll, fit in with game development, especially for you?
So the new GPTs, I think that is a new feature of ChatGPT. It has the ability to create custom GPTs. These GPTs are more like super specific chatbots that are trained on whatever knowledge and input you provide them with. So for game development, it could be you provide them with best practices for game development in Unity, what to avoid and what to go for, what kind of structures you should create while writing a code, what kind of comments you should do. This really comes from the perspective of a very senior game developer, and their experience. You could pour it into a chatbot, and then you could share this chatbot with anyone who has access to GPT-4, the paid subscription model, and they could talk to the GPT, and it is better than a normal conversation in ChatGPT because it is trained on a specific set of knowledge. So for junior game developers, it could be really useful. It could be very helpful, like a mentor basically, who is guiding them with the best practices and helping them save a lot of time, and uh, really boosting their game development. Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. And like, what specific areas would you recommend and do you use for GPTs? Specifically, what are the key areas that you feel like having a specifically trained bot that's more focused, less general, is the way to go?
So it could have many use cases. I was trying to create this one GPT in which you could upload your CV in the
Hmm.
form of PDF or PNG, and it would analyze it, and based on some guidelines, it would provide you feedback, like whether you have a profile picture or not, how specific is your job experience information, does it really tell the reader what kind of a game developer you are, do you have some repetitive information in the CV, some copywriting tips to really help your CV stand out. So you know let's say some job seeker comes in, he just uploads his CV and he gets a really good detailed feedback. Use cases like these, I think, can be very beneficial for people. It could also be, like a language teacher. Let's say you want to learn French, and you just come to it and it has like super specific knowledge, let's say from Duolingo has trained the chatbot, and you could just talk to it and learn French. It would guide you, help you come up with a set of courses and everything along those lines.
Okay. One of the problems I've had with ChatGPT, and I'm sure most of the users have had it as well when they're using it frequently enough, is consistent output. So like, I could ask the same question multiple different times, or you could ask it, I could ask it, somebody else could ask it, and the result from a little variance to hugely varied, it can be different. So like, how do you overcome that and get consistent output? And let's focus on a specific example. So you created those games, and the games that you created, that you've posted the processes, on the video where you're showing the ChatGPT website. I could go onto ChatGPT and try, and I'm actually in the process of doing this, creating some videos of how to create games like tic tac toe, pong, that sort of stuff really easily, really quickly using ChatGPT. And I'll do it, I'll get something working, and then when I do the next time, it'll be a slightly different output. And obviously I want to you know a certain way, or work in a certain way overall and consistent when I actually go to record. So how do you overcome that, or is it a matter of doing 10 recordings and seeing which one works?
No, I don't think it's a matter of doing multiple recordings. So mm, there's two steps to this. First step is to clearly define what you want the outcome to be,
Yep.
how you instruct it, how you guide it, what kind of like requirements you give to the chat GPT chat. The second thing is guiding it. You should really know how the outcome should look like. And let's say you first you send your first message, you send the first instructions to the chatbot, and you are having a conversation, you really need to guide uh, the conversation by negative or positive feedback. You need to tell it whether something is right, and if it is right, why it is right. If it is wrong, why it is wrong. That is the only way to get to the desired result. And this you can do this every single time. You just have to tell it why something is right, why something is wrong. So if it is outputting some code, if you know how to script really well, if you know how to code really well, you will understand whether the code is right or wrong, whether it will work or not work. And then you have to just tell it, okay, this is good, this would work, let's go to the next step. And if it outputs you some wrong piece of information, you should tell it, okay, this is wrong, this is why it won't work, can you fix it please. And if you just guide it well enough, you could reach to their desired results every single time.
Okay, so it's a matter of feedback, and also providing as much information as possible. And one of the things I would say on top of that is sometimes you can maybe provide too much information. Like obviously try and provide as much as you can, but don't make it so overwhelming that, let's say, the AI tool doesn't know what area to focus that much on. So like, I find, me personally, I find bullet points are very useful. One, it helps you clearly lay it out instead of doing like a paragraph. And I feel like that the actual language model prefers some sort of input like that as well, where it's just specifically laid out.
Yeah, exactly. Just like short concise information should be good enough. It is exactly like how you would talk to another colleague of yours, and who is, let's say, who is very new at his job. He can get the desired results, but you need to provide him with feedback and information.
Oh yeah, exactly. So, any of the games that you've created using AI, have you published them on any platforms like Apple, Google, Steam, Itch, or anything else?
The watermelon game, I have published it on a web portal, and it is on Android right now. We are testing it for some data, for some KPIs, to see if it would make sense to add more content to it.
Okay. And for Android, like, did you get it to create a different version, what, like in Java or Kotlin, or for a specific game framework engine, or the Unity? Like, how did you go about the Android version? Was it technically a different code base to the web version?
Not really. So in Unity, you can easily export it to multiple platforms like Android, iOS, even WebGL, Windows. The code remains the same. It writes the code in C sharp, and it just you can just switch the platform in Unity, and by changing a few settings, you can export it to any of the platforms you wish to. It is not that difficult. You don't have to rewrite the scripts or the code or anything like that.
Okay, okay, so that helps a lot. And what other engines have you tried, and would you recommend over Unity? Would you recommend Unity over anything else? And like what would you say are the best use cases for an engine like Unity? Like, what games specifically?
Mhm. I haven't really tried any other game engine. I am very comfortable with Unity. Sure, there was some drama, some debacle going around Unity, a couple of months ago. But I didn't really think to switch from Unity to any other engine. First of all, it would take me a lot of time to, learn another engine. Maybe a couple of months, maybe a little bit more to really get used to it. Uh, and Second, I don't think a lot of SDKs out there, a lot of plugins support most of the engines except Unity and Unreal. So, what really helps me in tracking the engagement for my game is data, and data SDKs like Adjust, Game Analytics, Firebase. Sure, they are coming to different game engines, but They're very well set up with Unity. I have everything in Unity, my own templates. So I really save a lot of time working in Unity this way. The best use cases for Unity, uh, I think, can be any kind of game you want to create. It could be a 2D game, it could be a 3D game, it could be an FPS, it could be a very simple puzzle game like Cut the Rope, Angry Birds, even Flappy Bird. People are also creating, realistic horror games in Unity. Compared to Unreal, I think Unity is really getting better with every version that they are releasing, and they are planning on releasing Unity 6, which is the latest version of Unity, and it seems very promising. So you could think of any game that you want, you could create it in Unity.
Okay, yeah. I think that's good. Good to hear for the audience that there is that, and that it's very capable. Because I find Unreal is very powerful, but overkill for simple 2D games, even though it's technically capable of 2D games. Whereas Unity, I find it a bit more friendly for 2D games and for developers that may not be as potentially skilled. But like you said, you can do a lot of great 3D stuff as well in Unity, so it does scale very very well. So that's a good option as an alternative to Unreal.
Hmm. Hmm.
So
Also,
yeah,
the community around Unity is very huge. You have so many resources available online. You could just ask if you face any problem, any troubles in Unity. You could just ask it online, and there are like so many people ready to help you out.
oh yeah, that's definitely an important part to any sort of language framework engine that you choose is a good community, because a community is what keeps the engine alive. I mean, even sometimes when the engine is dead, if from a support perspective, officially, it can still stay alive just through the community. So a good community is definitely crucial, from tutorials to support to advice to tips and tricks, and everything else in between. Community is 100% key. So you live in India yourself, and what's been the overall sort of appetite for tools like ChatGPT and AI generated art and AI generated code? Because I know over here in the West, in the UK, in America, there's a fair bit of pushback from developers and non-developers about it, but especially developers, uh, that it's not really openly used. At least if people are using it, they're not admitting to using it. They're not openly talking about it. And I feel like there'll be a lot of employers that don't want you to use it. What's the opinions and appetite over in India for those topics?
I couldn't talk specifically about India, but I think in the gaming community, a lot of players wouldn't prefer playing games that are generated with AI, like AI artwork specifically. Game developers, on the other hand, I think a lot of game developers, small solo game developers, small teams, indie teams, they prefer using these tools to develop games because it helps them save time and, again, even resources. In India, I think people are using it for games, for tech, to help them write code, to help them write applications, to help them in marketing, to help them in so many areas, specifically with communication. So uh, it's I think it's very there's I don't think there's a pushback as far as I know. I think people are using it. They like using it. It helps them in a lot of their professional aspects.
Okay. Are employers over in India, open to employees using it, and do they encourage it? Do you know?
I think it's encouraged. I think it's fine as far as I know. I I also have I have hired a game developer and I encourage him to use it whenever he faces problem or some troubles in developing the game. I ask him to just figure it out by ChatGPT. I think it's a way forward, even if people wouldn't like it. It's helping everyone around. Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's a tool that can greatly assist, people. And I know there's a lot of fear around it taking jobs, destroying whole sectors. What's your thoughts on that? Because people talking about whether it's artists, coders, writers, especially. Like, what's your thoughts around that?
It's a very debatable topic. I wouldn't say it would take jobs as such. I would say you would require people. You would still require people who would be capable enough to use these tools. Let's talk about a couple of decades ago when there was no Photoshop, Illustrator. People had to still draw images using their hands and paintings on a canvas, on a like a physical canvas, and that was the form of artwork. That was the only form of artwork, physical artworks. And then the whole digital revolution came in, the tech revolution came in, people started to use Photoshop. I think people did think back then that they would lose their jobs, the artists, the painters, the people who were into marketing, brand marketing, who would design logos using their hands on a physical piece of paper. But that did not happen. Instead, a new industry was created, and digital artists, digital marketers popped in, and a whole new segment of jobs were created. People who could use these tech tools, tech softwares. So I think the same thing would happen with these AI tools. People who could use these AI tools to create artwork and get the perfect artwork out, the desired artwork. They would be moving ahead. Even I wouldn't say even the people who are still creating artwork, or any task that could be delegated to these AI tools, I don't think their jobs would go away instantly. It could be a slow process, it could be a very slow process, but I think their jobs would still be here to stay, because you need someone to really deliver it perfectly. And I don't think AI is there yet. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Plus, the invention of those tools that you mentioned, like Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere Pro for video editing, it actually create not only did it create jobs, it created even more jobs, for artists, because there's so many different, things that you can do now, so many people that could get into it that otherwise wouldn't have been able to get into it. It's like I'm getting better at Photoshop. I've been using it for many years now. I'm not an artist, I'm a coder like yourself, but I can do some basic, or I say mid-level for Photoshop now, through developing my skills over the years. My drawing skills, like, they're, they're next to nothing. Like, I can barely draw a straight line with a ruler. So I feel like these tools actually allowed people that may have wanted to be more artistic, mm, to get into the field without the limitations of, oh, if you can't draw or paint on paper, you're locked out.
Exactly. It opens possibilities for everyone around, and not just for a specific set of people.
Oh yeah. And so, are you full time indie developer, or is it part time indie and working at a company as well to help fund yourself in your life?
No, I am a full-time indie developer now. So until last year, I was working at a game studio in Germany. They were working on hyper casual games. And even before that, I was an indie developer. I had my own studio, and I was working with publishers. So the story goes like this: during the COVID pandemic, I started making my own games. I was talking to publishers, and they were funding me for the games created. We were working on hyper casual games. This was back in 2020. I did this until 2022 when I moved to Germany for the role of a game producer in the hopes of, learning more from a professional company, professional studio, and growing myself in the gaming industry. But things didn't turn out to be what I expected them to be. So I got laid off back in October in 2022, and I came back to India. I started my own studio, and yeah, I'm making my own games now.
Okay. And was it just a general company-wide layoff? Because over the last 6 to 12 months, there's been a lot of layoffs within the gaming industry. Was the studio just, restricting their budget and making their staff size smaller?
No, it wasn't a case of a wide layoff or something like that. It was just some, you know, I wasn't really happy with how the company was going, and I was assigned the role of a game producer, a game lead, and I did not have a lot of flexibility, a lot of anonymity. I don't know if that's the right word, but I didn't have a lot of freedom in taking into my own decisions, and that could be reflected in my work. And there was a lot of toxic culture culture happening within the company, and due to that I wasn't really working towards the directed goals, because I did not agree 100% on how they wanted to create games, if that is the right direction. So it was a mismatch between me and the company, and due to that I was laid off.
Okay, fair enough. And currently, what games are you, working on, and any, big projects to be coming out on iOS and Android?
So I'm working on an idle RPG game for mobile, for Android right now. It is still in the development process. So it is a simple idle tower pushing game. I'm working on it with my developer. Apart from that, I'm still adding more content to the watermelon game. And beyond that, I have a premium game that I'm working on. It is called Squishy Cats. It is a game based around cats, and you could squish them because they're so jelly and fluffy. And I thought it would be a great idea to convert this into a game. It's a 2D puzzle game. You could drag the cats around, squeeze them through tight spots, have some puzzle elements, make them reach their objective spot in the game. So, a very fun, quirky game. I actually showcased a video of this game on Reddit, and the reviews were like quite interesting. People loved it a lot. So yeah.
When can we expect the RPG and the Squishy Cat game to be released?
The RPG game could be done by next end of next month. The squishy game, it might take a bit of time. I am still designing the mechanics, the level elements, but I have shared a couple of videos for the squishy cats on my LinkedIn, on my Twitter. It's a fun game. So squishy cats would be more would be like a mascot. The main cat in the game would be a mascot for my studio, Momo Games, and I could use it to brand and market everything around it.
Okay. I mean, I look forward to those games coming out and look forward to playing them. So you mentioned Android. You haven't mentioned iOS. Are you against publishing on iOS, or is there some plans in the future?
Not really. So what I really do is we make games, we make the prototype, the entire game. We first test it on Android, and if the KPIs are sufficient enough, then we port it to iOS. But none of my games so far had those incredible metrics to really port it to iOS and upload it on iOS. It wouldn't make sense to do that so far. But I love iOS. iOS has some really great games that are not available on Android.
So, what specific APIs are you, interested in, and what level would you accept? Would they be acceptable to warrant porting it over to iOS?
Okay, not APIs. I meant KPIs.
Yeah, 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 yeah. That's what I
Yeah,
said. KPIs, key
yeah,
performance indicators.
my
Yes.
bad. Okay. Okay, so what we really track in mobile games is playtime, retention, and level churn. Retention is basically checking how often the players come into your game over a period of, let's say a week or 30 days. So a good retention metric would be from day 0 to day 1, it would be anywhere around 40% or above. And playtime is checking how much time a player spends in your game. A good metric would be anywhere above 20 to 25 minutes within 24 hours of the game. And level churn is checking how quickly the players churn out of your levels. So let's say from level 1 to level 10, if 80% of the players stay, then it is a good metric.
Okay.
And there is also a case of marketability. So you have to check. You run ads on Facebook, on Meta, you run ads on TikTok, on Unity. You check if the game's concept is marketable enough, if the idea is if players really understand your idea, if they're attracted by it, and how many people download the game by running the advertising campaign on these ad networks.
So, you talked about the process of porting it over to iOS. What's that process, like? It must be pretty substantial if you're only going to do it when certain KPIs are met.
Yeah, it is a pretty straightforward process, pretty simple process, but porting a game again takes a couple of days of your time. You have to change the platform, you have to switch it to iOS, you have to switch the build to iOS, you have to work things around in Xcode, you have to upload it on iOS App Store and upload the assets, the creatives, the store listing. It 1 or 2 days, it is fine, but it doesn't make sense if no one's gonna play it on iOS, because no one is playing it on Android. So why would they play it on iOS? If you have a good game with good engagement, good reviews on Android, then you should definitely upload it for iOS. And I work with a couple of publishers. These publishers primarily test on Android, because Android is where you get good marketability compared to iOS, because of iOS's IDFA issues that happened a couple of years ago. So Android is the go-to choice for casual mobile game developers today.
Okay. And these publishers, how did you, get in contact with them? And is it a matter of, okay, I have an idea, you email them and they say, great, we'll pay you X amount, or is it like a percentage? Like how does that work? Are they publishing it for you on the Google Play Store? Like, what is that relationship?
hmm So back in 2020, when the games industry was booming, the mobile games industry, a lot of publishers popped in to publish hyper casual games. These publishers basically uh, help boost your game through user acquisition and marketing spend. So you could think of them as big marketers, marketing companies for mobile games. What they do is they come to you, or you come to them. You discuss an idea. Let's say you want to make a game like Cut the Rope. You discuss it with publishers. They give you feedback on your idea. You develop a prototype. You show them a video, and if they like the idea, they would ask you to test the game with them. Testing here refers to integrating some SDKs in the game to track the data, and running a test on Meta, Facebook, or TikTok to check the marketability. How many people click on the ad? How many people download the game? And how many impressions the game's trailer or video creative is able to reach? And once you have these data metrics out, you discuss it with the publisher, like, hey, what should we do? Is it good to add more content into the game, to make some changes? Do you see any potential? You upload the game on your Play Store account. Publishers don't do that for you. They only run the marketing test for you. And if you have good data in within the game, if players are playing the game a lot, if they're really liking the game, what the next step is to add more content to the game, add more gameplay, more meta gameplay, so players stay for long in the game. Then you add some in-app purchases, some in-app advertisements to generate the revenue out of the game. And the publishers, they run UA campaigns, user acquisition campaigns. They spend a lot of budget on it in different countries, different geographies, and like USA, UK, USA, all of Europe, India, Brazil, Japan, basically throughout the world. And the game in return generates some profit.
These publishers, they sound more like an analytics company that analyze the data, help you maybe push some downloads. Less than a publisher, because in my mind, usually the publisher would you would submit the game to them, they would publish it, and you would have some sort of revenue share option, and then they will be promoting it. So is he more like an analytics company and less like a publisher then, or are they like a different type of publisher?
No, it's more like the analytical company, but with some aspects of a publisher as well. They share the revenue with you once the game goes to global launch. Uh, the revenue generated from the ads and in-app purchases, but most of the promotion is done by running paid advertisement on these user acquisition channels, like I mentioned. So they do track a lot of data, they analyze a lot of data, but they also give you a lot of feedback on your games, on your product, how you could improve certain features of the game, how you could add more engaging features to it to entice the players. So I would say it's a mix of both, but more of an analytical company.
Okay. So sounds good. And do you just work with one of those analytics publishing companies, or do you work with multiple? And what is the revenue split? And does that change based on how successful the game becomes and how much revenue it generates?
It depends on how successful the game becomes and how much revenue it generates, but uh, the revenue split varies from between 30 to 50% for the developer, like myself. And I'm working with a couple of publishers at the moment, but I'm also uploading my games to a web portal. So, like HTML5 portals, you could play the games on the web browser, and it has a good audience, the web browser portals. Uh, right now, there's a big problem in the mobile games industry. The problem of distribution of games. It is not easy to get organic traffic, no matter how good of a game you have, unless it is a very viral game. It is very difficult to get players for your game, organic traffic for your game for free. Whereas these web portals, they have a lot. They have these distribution networks where players come and regularly play the game, so you don't really have to worry about your games not being reached out to the players. You just have to work on a high quality game, engaging game, and players will come and play your game. So that is the difference between web and mobile. And i I suggest a lot of solo developers that they should try out making games for the web, because it can help them generate revenue and they can work on leveling up in their game development skills as well.
So would you recommend developers publishing it on like their own website, or like a website specifically for that game, or using a third party platform like itch to publish their game? And if so, what platforms would you recommend?
I would suggest putting it up on a third party platform like itch. There are a couple of good platforms out there like crazygames.com, gamedistribution.com. And if you have a good engaging gameplay, you could earn some good money out of it by showing ads in the game. But the point is, you would understand what kind of games the players like and what kind of games they don't like. And in this way, you could become a better game developer and a better game designer.
Okay. And one of the things with anything entrepreneurial, especially being an indie developer, is staying afloat, because it's very difficult. You can spend months or weeks making your game, publish it, whether it's through the help with a publishing company or whether it's doing it yourself, and then receive next to no downloads, hardly any money, hardly any in-app purchases. That can be demoralizing, and obviously, it can be difficult when you're maybe you need money, you might have a family, or you got bills to pay. How what advice would you give to people that are starting out to try and ensure they have a successful game? And like, how have you ensured that so that you're full time on it? Because I know loads of people that have tried it, and including myself, that but it's just been difficult to get the revenue to a point where it's just not worth being an employee or doing other work like contract work, for example, or something else that's a bit more stable. So what advice would you give, and how have you approached that?
Yeah, I think it is quite scary, the thought of putting everything into a game and the game not generating any traction, not generating enough revenue, and the game failing a few weeks after launch. It is quite scary for indie developers, for any type of creator for that sort. It is a tough thing. You put a lot of hard work into it, and at the end, you don't know if it is going to succeed or not. But there are a few ways how you could tackle this. I am quite young right now. I'm still 26. I don't have a lot of bills to pay. I stay at my home in India right now. I don't have a lot of bills to pay. So I don't have to get revenue to that point where I generate a lot of revenue immediately. But it is still scary for me as well. Couple of things what indie game developers could do is uh, look out for funding if they have a good solid game on their hands. There are many publishers, private angel investors who would love to fund these indie game developers to help them see through the launch of the game. And uh, you could really get more feedback on your game in the early stages, even before you have a solid demo build ready. You could form a community of game players, game developers. You could go to Twitter, you could go to Reddit, you could go to LinkedIn, open up a Discord channel, get some feedback on your game from early on, right from the early stages. You could improve the gameplay. I've seen many game developers do this. They have been quite successful just by having early feedback. And these game developers, they are mostly solo developers with no funding, no great experience in making games. Another good approach is to take something that works, take a game structure, gameplay, game mechanic that works, and shifting some things around, changing, twisting some elements in the game. So it is a new game, but with a proven gameplay, because people love that gameplay. They will play this game, but there is a new twist added onto it. The fourth thing that I would suggest is making a game a marketable game. And I've learned this the hard way. I've learned this after 4 years of working in mobile games. If you make a game that is not attractive or that is not appealing, no matter how engaging it is, no matter if you have people playing it for hours and days, but if it is not attractive or appealing enough, no one will play it. And if no one plays your game, no one talks about it. If no one talks about it, the game just goes crashing down and down, and eventually you get zero traction on it. If you make a game that is marketable, if you have some fun elements into it, quirky elements into it, people will play the game and they will talk to others about the game. They will start sharing it on socials, like maybe Twitch, maybe YouTube, maybe TikTok, and you get more traction on it. Recently, I've been staying a lot more active on Twitter just for the gaming community, and I see all these gameplay videos, and they are so fun to just watch at. There are like cute characters, cute environments, and suddenly there's like a nice big fight going on between these two cute characters, which makes a compelling story. There's all kinds of gameplay you can see on Twitter, and these gameplays, these videos, they have thousands of impressions, thousands of likes, just because the game is so marketable, the idea is so marketable. So focusing on a marketable concept, I think, should be a very very primary focus as a game maker.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an important part because developers, game developers, they can get into this mindset of I really want to play this game, I really like this game, and I want to spend time making it, most possibly. Therefore, people are gonna want to play it. At least if it's good. You got plenty of games that are bad as well, and there's that. But let's say if you make the game feel good, it looks good, etc. Now with ChatGPT, you can enhance the artwork side of it, and I can't wait for OpenAI to release some sort of AI audio generating tool. Obviously, that's going to be the next step, and then
Yeah,
video as well. Obviously, we've already got some of that stuff. I've checked out some of the websites, but for to have it in a whole suite, because I think that's ultimately what OpenAI is going
yeah,
for. The way you have the Adobe suite, you'll have the Open AI suite, and that'll be for everything, and they'll cross, mingle between each other. Like you'll have ChatGPT as the core one, and branching off that you have Dolly, you'll have Audio E, let's call it, you'll have Video E or whatever, and other ones as well, and there might just be specific. High powered GPTs almost, or they might be specific, new LLMs, almost like Dolly. And I think it'd be
yeah,
more like the Dolly approach. But yeah, I think that's very critical. Is that when you're making a game, you've got to think, why are you making the game? Are you making it because you want to make a game, and regardless of its success, you'll be happy? And if it ends up being successful financially, that's just the bonus, and you've got a job, and you don't care about quitting your job and making it full time, or is it a matter of I want to make this my full time job eventually. So I want it to be able to pay the bills, have a life around, game development, indie game development more specifically. If that's the case, then like you said, you need to have games and game concepts that are marketable, because otherwise you might have a great idea for you and maybe a couple of friends, but it might not be the sort of game that the market wants right now or even cares about. You might have to do those hyper casual games and then have, the sort of gameplay mechanics that you may not want to play, but that's what makes the money and that's what gets the downloads. That doesn't immediately guarantee success. Obviously, you can clone Flappy Bird. That doesn't mean you're going to be as successful as the original Flappy Bird, but you're more likely than if you was to make a game again very specific, but only you and a couple of people want to play.
yeah. For me personally, it is a matter of making a good game, but also making some money out of it. But my suggestion to anyone who wants to leave everything and make games for money is don't do it, because it will no, it will take you some time. It will, maybe your first game is not a revenue generating game.
Mm.
It will take some time. It will take some iterations. But if you are just making a game for the purpose of making money, it's not going to work out in the very beginning. It might take some time. The best kind of game developers that I know who made a lot of money with their first games, with the games that they developed as their very first game, are the ones who didn't care about money. They just wanted to make a very engaging gameplay, and they incorporated community feedback in the very beginning, and they just got a successful game out of it. They didn't expect the game to even make $200 in sales, but the game is making them $25,000 every month now.
Okay, and
And
like,
yeah,
carry on.
no, no, carry on.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was just gonna ask, what developers do you admire and look up to? Obviously linking that with what you're saying. What are those some developers that you've just heard about or that you know personally?
So, like you and I reach out to some game developers whose games I find inspiring. One of them was Matthias. He is a game developer living in the States. I came across his game called Magic Research. It is an idle incremental game. It is The core gameplay is like one of those cookie clicker games where you just click on a cookie, you get more cookies, you hire some generators to generate more cookie. But Matthias incorporated a wizard theme into it, a magic theme into it, and there is also fighting in the game. You fight some dungeon monsters, you craft your own weapons, and the game has around 40 hours of gameplay in it. He worked on it for 6 to 8 months as a solo developer, and I interviewed him. His story is quite compelling. He just worked on it for 5 or 6 hours every day for 6 to 7 months, and as I said, he didn't expect the game to even get cross 1,000 downloads. And it is a premium game available on Steam, iOS, and Android. So my point is, as a solo developer, you can make a good game, you can earn money out of it. I love those kind of people who work in small teams, who always think of the game first rather than the market, what the current trends are, what is very hot right now. I love those kind of developers who can uh, make gameplays that are evergreen gameplays that will last for the next 4 or 5 years to come, and not just for the current 3 to 6 months.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And what are some of your favorite games to play? Especially on mobile. Are they hyper casual or are they, a bit deeper games?
For mobile, I like strategy, not exactly strategy, but I really love Hearthstone, for example. I love chess. I love puzzle games. I also like Candy Crush, just because of the Candy Crush hype. There's also a new game called Royal Match, which is a match three game. I used to love Pocket Tanks. These are very old games that I'm mentioning, but these are like evergreen games. I also play a lot of idle games like Slime RPG and idle incremental games as well.
Okay.
But on the
And
PC, I play League of Legends. I play Dota. I play FIFA on the PlayStation. I occasionally pop into play GTA.
So, what's your, on the subject of games, what's your favorite video game of all time?
I don't have any single favorite video game as such, but the game that I've played most is, I would say, Dota 2. Just because I don't know, it's just so addictive to play with friends and competing online.
So, are there, like, what video games are you looking forward to? Are there any games that have been announced or that you haven't played yet that you're excited to get your hands on?
Recently I've been excited for GTA, but it won't be released for another couple of years. Other than that, I keep losing a track of what's gonna release and what's not gonna release. I just play so many mobile games just to try them out, just to try out the mechanics. I play them for 5 to 10 minutes, and I just play so many of these shallow gameplay sessions just to see what different kind of games are coming out by different developers every day. So it's hard for me to keep a track of all these games.
I mean, oh yeah, just yeah, especially if you are looking at these, the smaller games, with the bigger AAA and AA titles, you can
Yeah.
keep an eye on it a bit more. Like it's more manageable. But yeah, like these hyper casual stuff and these mobile stuff, there's so many, and there's so many that just look so similar as well that you're just like, what the hell?
Yeah,
So
exactly. So that is why. Yeah, I'll just continue. That is why what my plan is to work on a few more of these casual mobile games and then completely shift to the premium games segment, where it's more indie game development than casual game development. I work on a game from start to finish and I sell it for a premium price.
okay. You how do you see that transition, occurring? Because obviously that's a total different ball game. S- putting a game on for free, having ads or in-app purchases, and instead of that, saying to somebody, "Okay, I'm going to charge you 4.99." Obviously, if it's on mobile, that's where you'd be like 2.99, 4.99, maybe 9.99 if it's a really big game. And obviously on PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch, it'll be more 30, 40, 50, $60, $70. So like how do you see that transition occurring? And is that something that you're already putting in place? And what sort of time frame do you see?
Uh, yeah, I think it's a matter of quality for premium games. You really have to deliver on what you can market, what you can promise. Premium games, you don't have to deal a lot of things like data and analytics and so many of the things that go in free to play games and casual mobile games. Premium games, you just have to focus on good mechanics, good level design, good story, good theme, good quality. And a lot of these free to play mobile games miss out on quality, on theme, on the story narrative aspect of it, which I miss a lot. Initially when I got into games, it was more about these factors that I mentioned that makes a game truly engaging. It's like having a very delightful meal, and you get to cook it with passion, with pure focus, pure passion, pure love. You are not you know making shallow gameplays. You are making more fulfilling gameplays with premium games. I think that is the thing.
Okay. I mean, 100% true. Because, with the casual stuff, I mean, when you're making it yourself, I find that there's an element of fulfillment in there that you don't get if you're just playing somebody else's. You definitely can get fulfillment from a deep, rich game that you haven't made. I find I've never got the fulfillment and enjoyment, long term enjoyment from a hyper casual, even a casual game, on mobile the way I would if I play something on PlayStation. I sink 20, 30, 40, 50 hours into it. and it's just got deep story, deep gameplay, amazing audio, and it's more memorable, and it's more satisfying. I feel like, yeah, I spent that time almost wisely. Whereas if I spend 50 hours on Flappy Bird, for example, I'm not gonna feel the same.
Yeah, yeah, but I think there's this factor to free to play games that the game wants you to play the game endlessly. There's no
Yes.
end to the game, you know. You just They just want you to keep coming back. But if you compare that to premium games, the game has most of the games, you know, they have a satisfying end to the game that okay, you are done. You can The game is finished now. You can, you know, go try out another game. We don't want you to keep coming back. You played the entire game, it's done.
Oh yeah, 100%. And it is one of those things that you have to be more in the mood for. With these premium games, it's like I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna turn my console on. It could be on mobile potentially, something like Monument Valley, but you're still more in the mood for it. Whereas on mobile, you could literally be in the kitchen waiting for the microwave to finish, or be on public transport, or be in a queue, and think, okay, I'll just play a bit of Flappy Bird, I'll play a bit of Candy Crush, or whatever the game is, and then you just almost like in your head throw away that gameplay session. Like it doesn't mean anything. It's just it is more just to pass the time because it's harder, I guess, and less socially acceptable. I know you got headphones, but to watch some TV. But people do it with YouTube videos, so I guess that's kind of taken over the TV aspect of video enjoyment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. People are, yeah, addicted to YouTube reels and everything of, you know, these quick short sessions
Mm.
of engagement.
So, before we start wrapping up the podcast, what advice would you give to indie developers and people looking to become indie developers? And especially, if you can incorporate AI tools like ChatGPT into that would be great as well.
Hmm. So if I would say, if someone wants to make a game, if you know, no matter where you come from, you can make a game. You can make a very satisfying, fulfilling game. But before making a game, I would suggest to, you know, play a lot of games. Play your favorite games. See what really attracts you to the game. What is fun about these games? Try to deconstruct the games in your head. Read about game design principles, how designing a game works, what are the different stages, what are the different theories, the different systems that you as a game maker can use while making your own game. Read up on how read up on, you know, best practices for game development. If you are someone who has no experience in programming, I would suggest to start with a programming course, a basic programming course, not related to game development, but just a basic to clear out your basics, to help you understand logic, systems, and structures. Because if you directly dive into game development, it is good, but you won't have the basics of logic cleared out in your head. And I think as a game maker, it should be you should be a very logical, straightforward thinker, because that also helps you design better games. And the third thing I would suggest is to, you know, understand how social media works, understand how marketing a game can work out for you, how you should, you know, make marketable marketable sections of your game, you know, deliver it to people online, talk to them on Reddit, on Twitter, on LinkedIn. If you want to have some feedback on your game, because I learned this the hard way, that you know, having a marketable game concept is important. You can, you know, just make a game and put it online, maybe on Google Store, or maybe on App Store, but if no one's gonna play it, it's not gonna be worth developing the game.
Yeah, I mean, that is very true. You've got to, like I said, be sure, why are you making the game? Whether it's for yourself and you just want to put it out there and any downloads and money is a bonus, or whether it's to make money, then, you've got to act accordingly, learn about game design, learn about marketing, learn about
Hmm.
trends. Part of that is playing games. Obviously don't get so much into playing games that you don't actually do any, coding and any work. But but part of it is, definitely playing games. So like if you're looking to make a hyper casual game, check out what's on the Google Play, on the Apple App Store. What's successful, especially some of the ones that are coming in and out of the top charts. Obviously, people know that Candy Crushes are in there, the Monopoly Goes are in there. That's great. Check them out. But check the other ones out as well. The ones that are coming in for a bit. See what people like about them on Reddit, on YouTube. Reviewers, and maybe even to some of those developers, you might be able to reach out, because if you have a developer that gets into the top 100 spot and is there for a bit, then comes out, they will have done well, but they won't have done so well that they are unapproachable, like the CEO of the company that makes Monopoly Go, or the CEO of
Mhm.
King, makes Candy Crush.
Yeah.
So, like, that's another, good piece of advice. Reach out. Obviously, don't be overbearing if you're reaching out on something like LinkedIn. Admire the game, appreciate it, and then, try and connect. Don't try and ask for either advice or something straight away. Slowly, get that developer relationship, and that I think that's a good way of going about it as well.
Yeah, to add on to that, I think networking is very important with fellow game developers, fellow game makers. Connecting with them, talking to them on socials, as you mentioned, is very important. They you could learn a lot from them. They post their content online. You could just read what they post, because mostly what they do is they share their insights, their experiences on how they were making games and how it is going for them, which could really help change your mindset about how you think of games and help you become a better game developer.
Oh
And
yeah,
also, uh, also to mention AI tools like ChatGPT, I think they are very great. But if you are just starting off in the games industry, it wouldn't be very helpful to you. It would be more helpful uh, to take a solid game development course and then use tools like ChatGPT, because you would then be able to provide the chatbot with feedback on what you want exactly, what you don't want. But you can't do that if you don't really know the technical aspects of game development.
yeah. I mean, I 100% agree with that. Everything that you said there. Definitely, when you're initially starting off, look at ChatGPT, look at these tools, but don't think that, okay, that's going to be your primary source of development output. Like, you could use that for learning. I think that's definitely a great thing. Help it, create a lesson plan for you, possibly around learning HTML, JavaScript, whatever it is, and you could use it for questions. But the way you would use Google and Stack Overflow. But don't think, okay, I don't know how to code, or I've just started. I'm gonna make a game, and on top of that, I'm just gonna use ChatGPT. You're just gonna, just be doing a disservice to your own skill set and also to what you can output. Just learn the core skills first, as Anul said, and then really start leverage. But definitely then start leveraging these tools like ChatGPT, like Dolly as well. I would say don't be afraid, the way a lot of people are, of using these tools, and just dive head in, and yeah, enjoy the tools and actually embrace them.
Exactly, exactly. So, yeah, Frahan, what kind of games have you developed? I would love to know a bit more about that.
Yeah, so it's been a few years since I've released a game. Every so often I do think about making another game, and our discussion has sparked that interest in me again. But a few years ago, I made a bunch of games, like a Brick Breaker clone. It was called Glow Breaker, GLO Breaker, and that had, I think, 50 levels in it,
Mhm.
and it even had a level editor as well, so you can make your own levels, which was really cool. I made that with a couple of friends. I handled the majority of the coding, and one of my coding friends, he was doing some of the Android side. I was handling iOS plus the majority of the coding. He was handling the editor side and a bit of Android specific stuff. And then another friend was doing the artwork itself. Created a game called Mighty Dots, which it was pretty simple. You would tap the screen, and there was a few color dots that would move left, and I think they were moving left, from right to left, or left to right,
Yeah.
and you would like a ring would close on it. You would have to match the color of the ring with the actual dot itself. So again, kind of hyper casually, games, but almost before that was really becoming a huge thing. It was like Flappy Bird had, come and gone. So it was definitely something that was, within the gaming industry, that whole idea of casual, especially hyper casual, but it wasn't, what it is today. What other games? I mean, there were loads that we made and released, off the top of my head, I am, forgetting a few. Plus, we collaborated with a bunch of other developers as well and published games for them. Some great ones like Ninja NIE and
Mhm.
JA, and that one like a platforming ninja game where you would just like jump from one platform to a next, and it was a high score based game. There's one called Up as well, very similar from the same developer. And sometimes we would provide artwork, sometimes it was some technical help, sometimes it was just publishing, and yeah, like a bunch of games, and there was loads of games that was just in concept stage. We had some concept art done, we had some gameplay done, and never made it to the final stages. But yeah, I really do want to get back into game development and coding again. It's always that thing of the money side of it. I'm making much more money doing other stuff within development, contracting, my own stuff, YouTube videos, that sort of side of it. But again, I do love games. I love making games as well. So I definitely want to get back into it. And I would possibly love to explore partnering up and working with you, I know, as well, on some projects, in the future, especially with all the crazy things that are going on with ChatGPT. There's some stuff that I haven't announced yet that I've been working on. In relation to ChatGPT and generative AI. Love to run them past you, off the podcast, and we'll see where we can go from there.
I would love to make some games with you. It looks like you had some good ideas back in the day, and you should definitely get back into game development. I think you had a lot of fun back then making games. So you sounded quite passionate and excited talking about your game development journey.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's like some of those, projects that I mentioned that I worked on made like no money, but I have fond memories of working on those projects and coding and designing those projects versus there's coding projects that I'll do now, like some contract work. They'll pay really
Mhm.
good money, but like it means nothing to me. Like
Mhm.
the actual, yeah, I did the work, did it to I hope to a good high standard. Client was happy, etc., etc. But it's not something I know I'm going to sit back in 10 years and think, I really enjoyed implementing that feature on that app, on that application, doing that, project. It's just going to be, oh, I made some good money that helped with life, that helped with investments, etc., etc. So yeah, like gaming in general, making games is definitely something I love compared to making apps and websites. But it's also it was just the passion and the enjoyment from doing, my own thing, and then also, like that indie, nature of it. I just loved it, especially working with a couple of friends as well. That was also a big part of it. It helps when you're working with people. I'm sure you can attest to this. I know doing it with someone else really does help.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Especially if they are your friends or someone who it is very fun. You get to have these conversations about what we should put in the game, if it is fun, if this mechanic is nice, if this control input, and all these small little factors that you get to discuss with your teammates and implement them in the game and seeing the result, the output. It's very much fun to work in a team than solo, of course.
Yeah, and like you said, especially if they were, your friends, because obviously it can be difficult working with friends. Sometimes you've got to find the right friends to work with. But when you do, because there's moments I'll sit down and I'll remember something, funny, that happened. Like I'll give you an example, because we was all remote whilst doing it, and the other two were on a call with me, and we was talking about, I don't know what specifically, but something to do with gameplay. I think for Glow Break, and I was trying to explain some concept, and it wasn't really sinking in. So the video was on. I just pulled out a whiteboard. I had a whiteboard on wheels in my room that I don't think they knew, and I just started drawing on on it. And I remember it was just such a funny interaction, at the time. And I remember I was showing them something, and they were saying you're in front of what you're showing me, and then I'll move in and I was blocking something else. Again, it's something that the average person listening is like, okay, that's not that fun. But like in the moment, it was like a fun, funny interaction. And then, you know, but we was working as well. We was achieving something. And yeah, like definitely those memories. And then there's other stuff as well. When things went wrong, or when things went right, and we got the game published, and we all breathed a sigh of relief, and we get our first download, our first purchase, and we're just discussing that and planning ahead. Definitely that side of it, and that just helps. When you have friends in general that have common interests, that you can have this sort of innocent, but I guess creative and also efficient moments in. Like, so,
Yeah,
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 uh, I think having the blend of the creativity, the fun, but then also the work side of it with friends, is great.
yeah, yeah. It's full of excitement, and full of these moments that you get to have with your friends. And I think the best thing was back then was you didn't have to really worry if the game would be super successful or not. You just wanted to create a fun game with your friends, and you did that. So yeah,
Yeah, I mean that's definitely an important aspect of it as well, because back then I was at uni. Then partly I had wrapped up part of the journey, and then but it was in the old days, I didn't really have bills. I was living at home. I was younger. Now I've just turned 32 years old last week. I've got, two kids, well, one kid and a second on the way, married, house, all that sort of stuff. So there's certain responsibilities that, okay, I'm gonna do some game stuff, 100%. Yeah, and there's some other non-gaming projects that I want to do, but I can't do it full time. I can't work on it 12 hours a day. Like that's how I was doing some of that stuff. Like just not just 8 hours, just like all day, 7 days a week. And I was loving it, and I didn't have the same sort of responsibilities. So that definitely helps as well. But just the whole aspect of creating the game itself was definitely very enjoyable.
yeah, more as a casual, fun, part-time stuff rather than yeah, relying full time on it.
Exactly. So before we wrap up, what I usually do is have like a rapid fire fun round of questions to,
Hmm.
calm things down and, have a little nice way of, closing the podcast. Are you ready for them and all?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah. So you've got a company yourself. Would you rather run it as a 10-person company, grow it to 10 people, or 1,000
Mhm.
people, and why?
Definitely 10-person company, because 1,000-person company, it sounds good. It sounds great. There could be a lot of money involved, but I prefer working closely with everyone. I prefer making sure everyone is working towards the same vision very closely, very tightly as I am. And everyone has their hands on involvement in the games that we will make together. I don't think that is possible in 1,000-person companies. Maybe it is possible, maybe it is not, but I would prefer having a smaller company.
Okay, having that personal touch where
Yeah,
everyone's names,
yeah.
etc. So, would you rather have? We'll put it in, US dollars. Actually, no, you lived in Europe, so I'll do it as euros. Would you rather have 5 million euros upfront or 500,000 a year for the rest of your, life, and why?
It would definitely be half a million euros for every year for the rest of my life. It's first of all, it's a stable income. Even if tomorrow I lose all of my money, I would have more money coming in the next year. Second, I could plan a better lifestyle this way, since I have a stable amount of money coming in every week. And if you calculate it, it would be way higher than those 5 million euros that I would get upfront.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Plus, you're young as well. I feel like if you're like 80, your decision probably would be the 5 million.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess age, plays a part in it as well. So,
Yeah,
what's
yeah,
your
definitely.
favorite board game and movie? We've talked about video games, so what's your favorite board game and movie?
My favorite board game is Monopoly. I have played a bunch of board games. Monopoly, the Scotland Yard. I love the Scotland Yard as well. Ticket to Ride. I've played Ticket to Ride as well. But I think I love Monopoly because it's a classic game. It has a lot of childhood memories for me, playing with my siblings, with my family, with my cousins, with my friends. A lot of good times involved with it. And if you talk about my favorite movie, I would say my favorite movie, it would have to be between Kung Fu Panda or Ratatouille. Uh, it's hard to choose between the two of them, but I would go with Ratatouille because it's a very fun, cute movie. About a rat who goes on and tries a lot of different things, especially in cooking. So yeah, Ratatouille.
Too classic.
Yeah,
So, wrapping up, final question. It's a two-parter. Does money buy you happiness, and what does a good life mean to you?
so ever since I was laid off last year, this is something that I have been thinking a lot about. Like questions like how much money is a lot of money? How do you live a good lifestyle? I think it's money does buy you a good lifestyle, but it depends from person to person. If you're someone who is struggling to pay the bills, sure, money will buy you a better lifestyle. If you are someone who already has a lot of money, more money wouldn't buy you a better lifestyle. It would just make it slightly better, not as better. And for me, money is something that is important in life. You need it to have a comfortable lifestyle, not necessarily a very happy lifestyle, but a comfortable lifestyle. And what was the other thing that you asked me?
What does a good life mean to you?
Good life would mean you are making games, you're making apps, products, and you don't have to worry about generating money from it. Not just making games or apps. You could just do about anything you want. Maybe you want to become a cook, maybe you want to become a yoga instructor, maybe you want to become a writer, and you could do so without worrying about the financial aspects of it. You're living your life. You get to do whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want it. There's no obstructions, no obstacles, and you're having a good life.
I think that's a great way to, wrap up the podcast. I know I want to thank you very much for coming on to FireDev. I know I learned a lot. I'm sure the audience did. It's great to hear from someone that is, deep into, indie development, but also AI driven tools and advancements like ChatGPT and Dolly. So Anil, thank you very much.
Rahan, thank you so much for hosting me on this podcast. I think it's a very brilliant thing that you're doing, reaching out to indie developers, game developers, people in the gaming industry to share their experiences with others who want to grow in the gaming industry. It is a very excellent thing that you're doing. I appreciate you and thank you again for hosting me here.
No problem. And that's the reason I do it, to uncover these journeys in a long form, outside of like a quick 5 minute interview, which doesn't provide much context. Whereas this, I think this has provided a lot of context for your life, how you work, your career, what you're doing going forward. Compared to just a quick little article, or a 5 minute snippet, down the road. So yeah, uh, that's the aim of the podcast. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in to this week's episode of FireDEV. It was a cracking episode, and I'll see you all in next week's episode of FireDEV. Thank you very much, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.